Today's Or Le Yud Base Sivan Tavshin Samech Tes. This is Hemshech Samech Tes of the Rebbe Rashab, and we're on Daf Lamed Vav. The Rebbe gave.
You should give the date also.
I did. I said.
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry. All right, so we saw the two inyonim in the parasha bein Atik l'Chochmas Timor, and similarly in the parasha between Chochmas Timor and Chochma Ilo Chochma Datzilas. We saw there was the slapshus of the air in the parasha, and through that we saw avus with the ayin, avus oil, which made it possible for the air to be slavish in the kelim da tzilas. And then we went on to see, we discussed somewhat the two expressions what the Rebbe uses here, that the oil l'mayla mi'a parsa mislavish u'misakev be'amadrega shemislavish boy. And through those two inyanim, mislavish u'misakev, then we saw that what brings to the thickening, as it were, of the oil, and it makes it able to be kemahus hamalbish, to become like the kli, which is causing it to be malubish. In other words, it becomes similar to the levush into which it is entering.
Isn't it a contradicting thing? You say mislavish is like saying to go in, and misakev is to say not to go in.
Yeah, the slavish means you enter the levush, and the levush is malbish you.
So it's like a 1, 2, 3.
Right, you are mislavish, and the levush is malbish you.
So it's together.
I mean, not necessarily you, but I mean whatever it is. Okay, so and we saw there was another musik which was called literally delay or holding back inside levush, and we discussed that at some length, and we brought from the hemshech of Rosh Hashanah Reish Samach Dalet. וזהו שעל ידי סלבשס האר בהפרסה של המיילה מהאצילס מסווה האר שיהיה ברך לסלביש בקרם דה אצילס. דנוידה דה פרסה הוא עניין איסיאס. It's well known that the parsa, how it is in the Moshel Haruchni, or the Nimshel Haruchni, is the union of Oisias, Moishkosu b'mochimacha, Oisias arehem kelim kanoida. In other words, how can we say that the oil is mislavish in the parsa? What is the parsa that it should be able to take adova hamislavish? Therefore, we have to say that islavsis is connected with the concept of a kli. You enter and you mislavish in a kli. Henochanami, that the inen of the parsa is in effect oisias, and oisias are kelim. They're connected with the concept of kelim. And therefore, the oil is mislavish, isn't it? The oil is mislavish in the kelim. However, we have to say that it's not like the slapshus of oil in a normal kli, because normally a kli is a kli hamakabel from the oil, and the oil enters the kli and to a certain extent remains, as you might say, in the kli, and then the kli passes on through itzat the oil to further madregas downwards. Mashenkin with a parsa, we see that the holding of a curtain, the oil just splits through the curtain. It doesn't really enter the curtain in any way. And therefore, it's slightly different, the whole concept of a curtain, to the ashpoa of a oil b'toich kli. Therefore, we have to say that nonetheless, even though the Amshocha and the Gilui were Alidei Parsa seems to be a much more immediate thing. In other words, that the earth just splits through the Parsa and goes ahead the way it was before, but there's a certain change occurs in the Parsa. So the Rebbe said, how does that change really occur? It just splits through the Parsa and goes further. It's the same way on the other side as it was L'mayla Mizeh. And therefore, said the Rebbe, there are two inyanim, that there's one inyan shel slapshes, and there's another one which is akova. In other words, contrary to what we might have thought, there is in a parsa also the inyan of slapshes, and also the inyan of akova, albeit not like ordinary, in inverted commas, shochas oiras b'toich kelim, because there it's different. But however, there is these two, or there are these two factors also in a parsa and a which passes through the parsa, and therefore we are careful to explain that a parsa is like oisias, and oisias are similar to kelim. Therefore, there's certain slapshes in the oisias and a certain akova in the oisias, just like there is in the area of oir and kelim al derech harogil. Therefore, said the Rebbe, the inyan of parsa is connected b'derech klal with oisias, and that's what we find in many places in Chassidus, that the inyan of a parsa is compared to the idea of a moshel. Therefore, we said that the parsa between Atzilus and Brio, Yitzir of Asiya, we have the parsa between Atzilus and Biyah, or there we say that it's like as if the earth talks about another thing altogether when it comes through the parsa. In other words, that it's like a oir shel tulda, it's almost like a born entity that comes out of the parsa. And there we have to say that the inyan of the oisias of the parsa have caused like a major alteration in the, what you might call the texture and the gilui of the oir. Therefore we see that a moshel, albeit leads you back to the nimshal eventually, but a moshel talks about inyanim completely different than what the nimshal is. The dvorim zorim legamrei, as we mentioned the other night. And therefore even an exact moshel, not just Samech's arbitrary moshel, but I feel an exact moshel is a dover zah, and it talks about inyanim legamrei shoinim v'acherim than the actual nimshal. So therefore, that's the idea of oisias and parsa, that normally the parsa changes the direction of the whole oir, like a moshel changes the nimshal. However, basically it's the same way, because the moshel is a moshel for the nimshal. So here in this particular case, in our parsa, between L'mayla mi'atzilas, or between Keser l'chochmas timur, the Rebbe says that it's difficult to say that because the oisias are all one inyan. That's what we're going to see now, that the oisias and the oir are all one inyan, as it were. They're all elokuts. Mashink in the oisias, the parsa between Atzilus and Brio, there the parsa is already, as it were, almost like another thing. Brio is already in for Nivroim, and therefore the oisias are very shaykh already to the inyan of Nivroim. Therefore we call the parsa between Atzilus and Brio, we call it an infant thick leather. It's like the inyan of a sandal or a shoe, but a shoe is a dover nivdo altogether from the foot, and it's a thick material which covers over the gilui, as you might call it, of the foot. And therefore, that's the normal concept, as in inverted commas, normal concept of a parsa. And that's the idea of the oisias of the parsa, and therefore the oisias are called in certain Maimonic Chassidus, they're called oisias bilti musudorim. They're not ordered oisias. Now that doesn't mean that there's just a lot of, how do you call it, mabakak, just a lot of, indiscernible statements. Or the oisias are considered zorim because they give forth an idea which is not really the nimshal. They give forth a moshel, and the moshel is not really the nimshal at all. But here, In this particular case, we can't say that because we're talking in Elikus, we're talking all in a Madrega, even Lifnei Atzila. And therefore we're going to see that the Oisias are going to be connected with the idea of Oisias HaChakiko, like Oisias inside the actual Evan, or the actual inyan itself. And that means Oisias, what they are, Mineu Bay, they're one and the same inyan, as the parsa itself, or the inyan that they're trying to express, the Hainu Elikus. Therefore, we'll see that in their case, we have to have this inyan with slapshas and a cover in a slightly and much higher oifen, nonetheless, we have to say that that does exist. And so therefore he says that the inyan, the slapshas, papas, or malam yatilas, misava oyer, shia be'erek l'slabish the kelim datzilot, the neither the pas of inyan oisias. Oisias are him kelim, ulas ois, alidei slapshas be'apasa, shenase kemahus hamalubish, that it becomes, or once again, it becomes like the malish, not hamalubish, but it becomes like the oisias. Harihu be'erech lehi slavish bekelim datzilot. Since the oil becomes similar to that of the kelim, which is being malbished, therefore it becomes similar to kelim. Therefore it's able to enter the kelim of Atzilas. It's able to go from that parsa and enter into the kelim of Atzilas. Now that doesn't mean that the oil itself becomes kelim, but it becomes similar to the kelim, and therefore it's able to go down and enter the kelim of Atzilas. However, between Atzilas and Biyah, or we say that the etzem kelim themselves of Atzilas, they become the oil of Biyah. In other words, it's so great is the Yerida in the oil that they become the oil in Biyah, which means that the oil going through the parsa between Atzilas, Lebriah, well, that's a much greater inyan of Shinui, because the oil itself has already been mishtana from oil to Kli, and then it's gone from Kli into oil. So it's possible to be malim very much on such a oil, and therefore it's only considered like a moshel, as we say. Over here, we can't say that, even though we do say that there's been a certain effect of the kelim of the oisias on the oil, but not to bring them to be a inyan of a mahus acher. It's still oil, and it's still being meir b'derech, what you might call derech yeshara, through the parsa.
Over here it says shenas kemahusa meluvash. Previously when you had
not meluvash, malbish.
Oh, you changed the language.
Yeah.
Also over here too?
Malbish.
Also here too?
Yeah, therefore they become be'erech l'slavish b'bchinas kelim datil. Be'agam datilas u'bchinas gilui ha'helem al koponim. We say always that Atzilas is gilui ha'helem from Mailam Atzilas. And it's well known that Gilui ha'helem means that which was in the higher Madrega just goes down, but the Gilui from that the Helem and the Gilui are all interrelated. In other words, that the Gilui is Lefi Erech ha'helem. And that's how we always talk about Atzilas. We say that it's just a koyach, in the Lashon of the Mekubalim, it's called a koyach ha'kamus, like a hidden power, which just reveals itself into more detail. So Gilui ha'helem usually does not imply a parsa, because a parsa is a very heavy change in the oil. So the Rebbe says that if I'm going to say that the Amshocha into Atzilas from the L'mayla Atzilas is by way of a parsa, then it somewhat runs into what you might call a collision with the general principle that Atzilas is only Gilui ha'helem. It's just the inyan that were there in the higher Madrega, not noticeable, that it's come out into his Gallup. But if you say that they come to a parsa, then that's like a tremendous change. So that, because the oil becomes like the malbush becomes similar to the kelim, to the oisia. So therefore said the Rebbe, Hine b'emes, ein a doima b'chinas parsa, hanal parsa, shebein atzilas lebiyah. He said, you asked that question because you're used to the idea of a parsa being the parsa between atzilas lebiyah. Shemedaba mi'inyan acher, it talks about a completely different inyan. Dahainu, it gives forth a inyan which is only like a marshal bilvat to atzilas. Shaloi mi'inyan atzilas klal. And therefore, it's if a hamshota derech a parsa like that can't be called giluya ahilim. It's already in the form of yesh mi'ayin almost, because it's gone through the very heavy helim of the parsa, which has literally made it into another inyan altogether. However, here he says, Ma'she'in kein parsa hanal, the parsa we're talking about, ein ze shemedaber mi'inyan acher chasper sholem. It doesn't talk on the other side of the parsa about something else. It's mamish the same oyer. Ki yesh hefresh bein imay slabshes. He b'madrega she elakus, oy she slabshes hu b'mahus acher. It depends what you're talking about, all within the realm of elakus, or you're talking about something else altogether from elakus, dahainu nivroim. And there is a parsha shebein oyer in seif hamatzil atzilas. Im hi yoyzer b'chinas oisiyas, harihem elakus mamish. Even though they're oisiyas, and generally speaking, oisiyas being kalim, or they reduce the whole earth to being similar to kalim. And like we pointed out, that in the chanami from atzilas into biyah, the earth actually become kalim, or the kalim actually become oiras. Yeah, which means that in the chanami it's a very severe alteration, but that's in of a marshal compared to a nimshal. However, he said here, we are parsa shebein ein seif. Vi madrega shehi elakus. Yeah, oy she slapshes hi b'mahus acher. Va parsa shebein ein seif hamatzil atzilas. If we talk about the parsa between Malchus of Atzilus to Biyah, then that's one thing. But our parsa, which is between Oyerin Seif Hamatzil Atzilus, Imi Yosef, B'chinas Oisias, Harihem Elakus, Mamish. They are Mamish Elakus, and therefore they can't really alter anything. It's all just different gradations in Elakus. B'frat Shenira Loima, Shahem B'chinas Oisias HaChakiko. That's what he brings. He's masba over there, brichas in Tofrei Samech Tes, that we could suggest that these oisias are not oisias zorim klal, but they are oisias hachakicho. In other words, that the oisias are minei bay, literally from the oil. In other words, that they're oisias that are betalim megamri to the oil. So even though the earth does slightly alter, but only in a very relative way. We pointed out last night that when you have on a bright stone oisias that you've cut into the bright stone, then there's a slight little dark sort of lack of the brightness of the stone in that area where the oisias are. Although generally speaking, they don't really alter the general appearance of the evan in which they've been cut. And that was the Rebbe, the oisias in this parsa are literally part of the earth. They're literally so bottle to the earth that they're like oisias hakika. And we see that oisias hakika are betaling legamri to whatever they're cut into. So that if you cut oisias hakika into wood, then they're just part of the wood. They're not some other materials at all. So the Rebbe Nira Loima, he doesn't say that it's absolutely sure kacha. Oh, that's what he says in Samech Tes also. But he said we could maybe suggest that even though these oisias are mamish oisias, and they are like another entity, they're not the simplicity of the oil, but nonetheless, they are betalim to the oil, at krikat, that we could call them like as if they were cut into the earth, like as if they're part of the earth, and that means that they're not a dover zar or a dover shoine in any way to the earth, and that means that they're both Elokus. Like we pointed out on many occasions that the Shem Elokim, which is the Kalim, and the Shem Havaya are all the same Indian, that they're all Mamish Elokus, and they can't really be Meshana or Malim or Master one against the other, because they're all Elikut. Yeah, the same thing. Or these Oisias, albeit the oil enters them, but they're so bottled to the earth because they're all one in, that they're called Oisias Achakiko. What do they achieve? They don't achieve anything. So we say they do achieve, that we notice that whenever there's a Ayin of an Oisias in a Dover portion, it slightly darkens the brilliant effect or whatever it might be of that Dover. And therefore, that's what we're suggesting. And therefore, we have to say that the Koyach HaGvul in Elokus, which is the Inif and the Oisias, well, that has a slight effect on the Koyach HaBligvul. If the Bligvul allows the union together with the Gvul, well, that's the union of these two inyonim together in Elokus, then we have to say that the Koyach HaGvul has a slight effect somewhat on the brilliance, as you might call it, of the Bligvul. And that's exactly what we're saying. Well, that's the concept of his avus oil. The oil becomes ever so slightly, as it were, altered or thickened by that islabshet. But it doesn't become completely altered, like in the case of Atzilus leading into Bi'ah. Therefore, he said, Nira loima, that they are oisius ha'chakika. V'lochein ein oil mishtane. Therefore, the oil doesn't alter to become like another mohus, like it does in Bi'ah. It becomes ever so slightly, as it were, thickened. It becomes already possible that in the realm of Elokus it can go down into a lower union with the Koyach HaGvul and allow the Keli to be, as it were, Mamish Matzias Legabiyit, as is well known. The Kelim in Atzilus already compared to Oisis Siva. They're like Oisis written on paper, that they're also bottled to the paper and the Dovuk, but they're like a little Matzias on there. They're on to a certain extent, because the Dio is a separate inyan from the paper. In fact, that's the Oisis how they are in Atzilus. However, once I've already gone through these ACS, and like we pointed out last night, that the inyan of the Isavus Kitzas is this concept of the inyan of Pshitos, that the inyan of oil, like we've had all through these Maimorim, Amitius ha'oil ha'eloki, and Amitius Gilui ha'oil from the Eibishter, how he is, Atzmi, is the inyan from Pshitas. Pshitas, like Amri, meaning it's not constituent or shy to any detail or to any slapshus in any dover which is specific. And that's the Indian of absolute Bligvul, as we pointed out, that the two inyonim, Bligvul and Pshitas, are connected together, one with the other. However, if I say that I've thickened the ore somewhat, then that means that I've reduced this Pshitas. I've held back the inner Pshitas, but I haven't held back the Ein Sof here. So we've already seen that you can do that, you can talk about that in these levels, and we saw that earlier in the Maimah, that even though there can be an inyan of Gilui ad Ein Sof, or nonetheless there can be still already a trace of lack of Pshitas. And that's what the Ramban held over there. We saw the Ramban, that he said that you got a Kalim of Atzilus already a certain inyan over there, that inyan ad Ein Sof. And we saw to a certain extent even the Pardes also held that way. And so that's all because we're dealing in levels of Elokus itself, Mamish. Well, Lochein, it says the Rebbe, it doesn't change, it only thickens somewhat, and that makes it be'er to the Kalim of Atzilus. Okay, Moshe, of course, of Kol Zeh, all of this has been explained, but Dibor HaMaschil Hanal in Tikul B'Chodesh in Reish Samech Aleph. Belule Haparsa, excuse me, I'm going to have to take some action if you don't stop all this playing around. Okay? You're just sitting and playing. Either you're making marks on the paper or you're playing with the pen. Well, I'm very pleased to see it. I'm very thrilled to see it. ולכן אין הרי משתנה ליש כמו שכוסף כל זה בדיבור המסחר הנ"ל. ולולי הפרסה הנ"ל, if it weren't for that parsa, הנה האויר בעצם אינו בערך כלל לסלביש בכרם דאצילוס. Why? Because it's pshita. It's absolute pshita. And the Indian of his avus is this concept of bringing away the pshitas and allowing the appearance of a capacity to unite with Gavul. But that doesn't alter the Ein Say. And if it weren't for this parsa, then the be'etzem is not be'erach l'slabish b'kelim da atzilas. Is it? Huh? Huh? Is something wrong?
No, I was thinking about something you said. I wasn't paying attention.
What?
I was thinking about something you said. I wasn't paying attention.
You're thinking about something connected with the mind?
Yeah.
That's good. Very good. And if it weren't for the fact that it becomes be'erach l'slabish b'kelim da'atzilas, then it would not have been possible for there to come about the whole creation of Bria Yetzirah V'Yasir. Maybe I missed on the line there. V'lulei ha'parsa be'etzem eino be'erach klal l'slabish b'kelim da'atzilas, u'mamela lo hoya efshe klal l'yesisavas Bria Yetzirah V'Yasir. Omash kosu b'Eit Chaim, and that was written in the Eit Chaim Shara Akudim, Inyan Atzimtzum Opalsa di Ak, what Ak is the Keseh HaKloli after the Tzimtzum. In other words, Ak would be here referring to L'mayla Michochmas Timoah, or it would be referring to Atik for our purposes. The Atzimtzum Hu B'Shvila Atzilas, by our Palsa B'Shvila Elama Abriya. In other words, that the two main factors that we've had under discussion here, it's written over there that the Tzimtzum, that's in order to get to Atzila. But the Parsa, that's for Elama Abriya. And here we've been saying that even between Atik, even between Ak itself, Malchus Diak, and Chochmas Timoy, you only got a Parsa. So there was it's not a kasha. Hainu the Ika HaParsa, that the main concept of Parsa, which as we said is usually the idea of a heavy curtaining, a heavy blocking, and it changes everything only in the form of a moshul. Yeah, then Hubein Atzilas, Labria. Yeah, why? Because you're talking already in Nivroim terms, you've moved already into the field of Dvorim, which are not Elokus. Well, that's normally the concept of Parsa. So therefore, the Arizal writes over there in a general way. He doesn't go into the deep because he himself, and we brought from the Shah Harikampin Perek Gimel, that we brought over there. He does talk about these parsois. So why would he himself say a thing like that? Because he's talking in a general way that the Ika concept of parsa, hu bein atzilas labriya, shu lahalim ha'el lishanoisei, and to alter the earth, at shebo b'mahus acher, it comes another entity altogether. Well, that's the earth how it is in brio, and it becomes a ayin of what we call an earth shel tulda, like a born off thing. Masha enkim b'atzilas canal. Always a mikol mokim gamam shochas ba'atzilas hu alidei parsa haparsa davke. Nonetheless, that doesn't mean that he's not. The result didn't with that cancel out the possibility that there are other parsois protium prior to that. Because that's like we might call the big parsa haklali, and that's the big general concept of parsa. So therefore, generally speaking, the Arizal said, Tzimtzumim, Halayala, Mailamim Malchus Tatzilas, they couldn't bring me to as much as that I could get into Biyah. In order to get into Biyah, I have to have a parsa. But he's not denying or cancelling with that the possibility of higher parsois, and we've already seen two of them, one between Chochma Stimoya and Chochma Tatzilas, and this other one between Chochma Atik or Ak and the Indian of Chochma Stimoy itself. Alright, so therefore the Rebbe, it's not a steer from that general statement in another perek of the Kisvei Arizal. So there we are. We've reached the conclusion of that inyan, and we've seen quite a few fascinating concepts. So now it says the Rebbe Valpi Hanal. According to all this, Yuvan, we will come to understand Mashukosu Usha'avte Mayim B'Salsein Mimayne HaYeshua. Well, that's the posse that we brought at the beginning of the Maimah from Yeshaya Hanovi. What he says that you will draw water with joy and rejoicing from the Mayonis, that he called from the springs of Yeshua, of salvation, literally. And so that was referring to what we call the Nisucha Hamayim, which is brought in the Mishnah at the end of Masech Sukkah, where there it describes at length all the details of how they base on a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, not in a clear pasuk in the Torah, but on a limud that we have, which is only a limud bilvad, which is Megala, the halacha l'Moshe Sinai of Nisuch Hamayim in Chag HaSukkot. And this one on the Alter Rebbe says that it can only come in the form of halacha l'Moshe Sinai, because it's such a high union as we're about to see here, such a high scholars. Therefore, it can only come b'derech gilui chutz mi'oisis haTorah atzma. However, he says, inyan nisuch hamayim, the pouring of the water into the shittin at the top of the mizbeach, u'k'moi kein kol hagiluim de Chag HaSukkos. All of the revelations which occur in Chag HaSukkos, in other words, the makifim of the schak and the amshachas alidei the abaminim, all those inyanim would occur in Chag HaSukkos. He said, Zeu agilui me'amshacha de Yom HaKippurim. He said the whole of Sukkot and all the giluim and all the things which come out, but derech hiskalos, we'll soon see the pasuk that indicates that in Chag HaSukkos, all derive from Yom HaKippurim. The Hineksiv, in reference to Yom HaKippurim, it is written, Ki be'onon ero'eh ala kaporos. It's written in Pasha Achrei, that the Avish says that I will be seen literally in a cloud. Be'onon ero'eh al hakaporos. What the kaporos means, the covering over the Orein, when Kohen Gadol took in the Keteris into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, then the Avish says, I will be seen literally through the cloud, the Koi al Inen HaKeteris. That is referring to the Anan, the cloud of the Keteris. So we see that expression is like almost two contrasting expressions, be'onon ero'eh, because normally an anan is a thing which hides things. If where you got an anan, then you can't see past the anan. If you go inside an anan, you get lost. You're not visible, you can't see where you're going either. So anan is usually the idea of not vision. And Yannaga says, Ki be'anon ero'eh, I will be seen literally in the an. What that tends to indicate that the very essence of Hashem, which is beyond the idea of being hidden or revealed, it doesn't matter whether it's an anan or whatever it is, it's only anan to indicate it's very, very high, normal withdrawal from any form of gilui, but being as the Atzmus is beyond all of those limitations, then he's able to be, as it were, begodui and noticeable kaviyocho in the union of the Keteris inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippurim. And what's it mean that all the other inyanim come from there? On that tremendously high level of the Gilui Atzmus in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you have all the Schach HaSukkah, as brought down in the Jerusalem of the Rebbeim, that the Schach HaSukkah come from that cloud literally goes out from the Kodesh HaKadoshim into the whole world, and it becomes the Schach of the Sukkah. And similarly speaking, the Peshitas, the absolute simplicity of that cloud, which represents such a high madrega, well, that goes out and becomes water. It becomes a simple, untasting and poshet azach, as if water. And then the inyan of the Arba Minim is that they bring down those makifim into the pnimias, and eventually on Simchas Torah the whole inyan and all the atzmas and everything comes b'toich makablim in a form of iskala. So all those inyanim all began on Yom Kippurim because it was all there in the Kodesh HaKadoshim in this wondrous cloud of Ketores. V'yodua the inyan HaKetores hu birur hayud alaf kisrin de misabusa שזה עניין היוד אלף סממוניקה וביום הכיפורים הבירו הוא על ידי התשובה. So the Rebbe, it's Yodua that the Ketores has 11 constituent, how do you call it, samamonim, like, what do you call them?
Spices?
Spices.
Spices?
Spices?
I can't hear.
Spices.
Spices, very nice, yeah. Spices, yeah. It has 11 different spices in it. So now, why 11? We know that in Kedusha, the Ika Mispar is 10, Esser. Why would it be 11? So it's brought down in Tzeres that the highest of the Liyumazeh, the highest of the Klippers, and the 10 spheres, how they are in the Klippers, is really 11 and not 10. Even though, if you look in Tanya Perek Vav, the Alter Rebbe seems to say that Zeliu Maser, like there are 10 spheres in Kedusha, there are also 10 spheres in Liu Maser, in the Klippers. So how do we say the Yud Aleph? So the beer is that the oil in the spheres, the Klippers, is not beyichuditam. That even though it's much pure to them, it doesn't unite, and they are not bottled to the oil. And therefore, it's like as if the oil and they are another entity. And therefore, it's like as if what you might call, the oil and the chayas of the 10 spheres of Liumah is another entity. It's another thing to be counted. It's 11 and not 10. Obviously, since it's not Begoli but Teichon, then that 11th power, as it were, is a very powerful power because it's like a makif of Liumah. However, in Kedusha we have Eser, V'loi Teisha, Eser, V'loi Achadasa. It's brought down in the Kunei Zohar. It's Tafkitem, not 9 and not 11. Because the Oyer and the Alakus, which is Meir into the spheres, in the Eser spheres of Kedusha, is Mishyachid with them. And they become completely Betelim and Niklolim, therefore the oil, despite the fact that it's Elakus, Mamish and Gilu from a very high Madrega, but it all becomes one, the Kelim and the oil all unite, B'tachas HaYichud, therefore it's only 10. So the answer is that Einochanami even in Klippers also only 10. But it's really 11. And it's a very powerful sort of makif, like an obstinacy of the Klippers, which holds them, it sort of holds them somewhat, but it's not mishachid with them. So it just sort of, it gives them a sort of a chayas without actually relating to them, which means that even their chayas is not in a form of pnimias. It's just like kalacha yad, like the elder brings in Perikov Beis, that he sort of, that their own chayas throws itself at them, like you throw something, backhandedly at something. And if they are really 11 and not. They're really 11 and not 10, even though they are 10. And if I said the Rebbe, the inyan of the Ketores is a very high level. It's a biru, it's a cleansingness and a purification. But he says it's a purification of the whole bang of the Klippers, even the makif of the Klippers, even the inyan of the Yud Aleph Shebehem. That's the inyan of Ketores. And the fact, that's the inyan in the Ketores of the, it's well known, that the Levein Zako, Yeah, that's how they call it, the makif, literally. The makif of the clippers is called, is that thing which is called Levina Zaka. If you look in the thing, you'll see there's various spices. One of them is called the Levina Zaka. So it's Por LP Kabbalah, that's like the 11th one BMS, that's like the makish which keeps all of them. Because the word Levina is from the word Lovon, and Lovon indicates white. White indicates pshitas. And therefore that's like the pshitas of the makif which keeps them all together, as it were. But it's a very powerful kohen. And therefore there's another inyan in the Zippers called the chelbana. But the chelbana is not a good smelling thing. But that's also got a bit to do with the inyan of the clippers. Like Rashi, we went to the Shukla, but Rashi brings out in Parsha Kisisa, where he mentions the different spices in the that he brings it. Why is it that you have chelbana? But he said, "Ein lechador sheyesh le'reach raka b'ya chelbana." Lama zeh b'tech haketeiros. So Rashi says, "Malamed she'ein tainis b'Yisrael b'li letzaref poisha Yisrael." That if you're davening on the day of a tainis and you want to have a lot of rachmim, a lot of answers to the prayers, then you should try to be mitzaref to the minyan, even guys that don't keep Yiddishkeit al derech harogel, or people who are not so from, etc., etc. You should try to have them b'teich haminyan. That's what is spoiled the whole inyan of the tefillah. V'chulever went to all shir and the shir klore about it. And that's also the inyan from tefillah samincha, that the Yerushalmi compares the inyan of tefillah samincha to keteiros, and shachris and arvis are compared to korbanos. Over the inyan of tefillah mincha is compared to keteiros stuff. And therefore it's brought down that mincha is the tefillah which has the biggest effect in birur and bittul of the clippers and the sitra achra, fil in the makif of the sitra achra. And therefore it's brought down the famous statement that Le'olam Yehei Adam Zoya B'Tfilata Hamincha. There were the famous Gemara in Masechta Brachos, and the whole view of Zal Derech HaChassidus, etc., etc. But no doubt you're all familiar with the myth. Well, you're probably familiar with the myth that you have to be very careful about Tfilata Hamincha, because it's a very in that Indian Hochaponim, it's the highest of all the tefillahs. And that's why it is that it's able to be mavatal and mavarer even the inyan of the Yud Aleph Samamonike Torah. Where does the inyan from Mincha have Yud Aleph in it? You see that in order to daven Mincha, by Yeshiva Bochim, lo yadim mizeh kol kach. They just learn and they get up and daven Mincha, and then they probably have a bit of drama or do other things, and then they learn further. Normally speaking, mincha is not such a tremendous effort. But by the Balabatische Welt and by the Yidden who are out in the world, mincha is a big effort. You got to tear yourself away from everything in order to daven. That tearing yourself away and not reckoning with any manias by Kuvim, or that's a Yud Aleph Dusha, that's a Makif Alien, which is Meir B'Shastini, and that's Mavatal, the Yud Aleph of the Umasha. And not. Oh, that's what we want. Want to smile? I'm going to smile. Come again weiter. All right. Yom Kippurim, oh, so now says the Rebbe, I wasn't with the Inyan from Yom Kippurim. Over there, by the Inyan from normally speaking, by the Inyan from Mincha and other attacks that we make against the Yud Aleph, the Yud Aleph of the Clippers, we're only Mavatlam. Or we machniya them, to use the expression, or we machlish their power. But on Yom Kippur, he said the birur is alidei tshuva, because what makes whole the Yom Kippur function is tshuva. So he said, where the birur is alidei tshuva, then it's mevatel the Yud Aleph Samamonik Teres all together, and it's mevatel the whole inyan of the Siras Harayah and Liyumah and their market. Because the inyan for tshuva is also the inyan for makif. The inyan for tshuva is the etzem hanefer. And as it brought down all the biurim, and it says the tshuva is like your highest point, it's beyond all your normal koiches. No, it's the inyan of dilug, a kvitza, up into a very, very high Madrege, and that's also got to do with the whole Indian of the Knisa Bifnai Bifnim, he goes right into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Makiv Shebamakiv, on Yom Kippur, V'chuli, that's mitzad the Indian of Tshuva. That's mitzad the power of drawing back and to dalek shura, to jump over the wall of all the limitations and to go into Indian from Lamayla, Madida Vakabola. That's the Indian of Tshuva. And remember when the bureau and the attack on the Yud Aleph Chisodim, and that's another deal. And therefore the spheres in the clippers are called, all of them, Keser. They're all called Chisodim Rosh Rabbi. But here in Kedusha we have one Keser and all the rest of them are just more specific in Yonah. Why are they called Kisorim? Because they're all really Makifim. Each one of them is really living from a oil, which is not really it. It's living from a Keser. Each one of them only hangs around because of a Koyach Makif. And therefore, everything in the clippers is wild. It's sort of, the Bli Chesbain, because they're really Kisorim. And therefore they're called, I forgot that deal, that's in the Yud Aleph Kisorim, the Misabusa. Misabusa means Tumah. The word Misabusa in Aramaic is Tumah. So the Rebbe, the emes of Biru, of those Yud Aleph, is on Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur's Indian is Teshuvah. The Bechol Hashanah, Harei Gamkein Alidei Kteres, Nimshek Gilyor Alien, Yoter, Alidei Korban. So the Rebbe said, the truth is that all of the year, you also Mamshik, through the Kteres, are much higher oil than Alidei Korbanos, because we see that the Indian for Korbanos is called Achila. Kaviohu, the Mizbech eats the Korbanos, and that causes Kaviohu Lamaila also a Yam Shofer, which is Bederach Achila. Mashenkin Keteres is Reach, that's the Indian for smell, and that's much higher than Achila. Come over in the Gemara and in Haber and Mekaymeis, the Indian from Korbanos are a Hamshocha, which has still got some sort of a shaykhs to say that he's Shtausha. It's albeit Tatikun, but it's got a certain shaykhs to what you might call the Seder of the Spheres and the Koiches. Mashin Keteres is much higher than that, even the whole year. Like we said, it's an Indian from Makiv connected with Reah. That's the pasuk that Yerushalmi brings to show the Maila of Mincha. And it's a pasuk in Tilim right near the end, where David HaMelech says, Tifoin Tfilosi, Keteres Lefanaga, establish my prayer like as if it were Keteres in front of you, Maaso Kapoi Minchas Olim. The lifting up of my hands should be like a sweet mincha. So from that Yerushalmi learns that mincha is connected with keteres. The tefilasi, the prayer of mincha is connected with keteres. So that's what we just said. There's a big birra in the tefillas of mincha. So the Rebbe said that's the whole year. Because it's the union of Reach, which is Makiv, and that's the union of B'chol Miyeh. The union from Korban is a B'chol Levavcha, and sometimes even B'chol Nafshecha. But the union from Keteres is B'chol Miyeh, Derech, B'livu, a union from, that he called Aveda, which is not limited. But, he said, that doesn't come to Tshuva. There's an extra B'chol Miyeh Derech, which is Tshuva. In other words, the Tshuva can reach even higher than what you might call ordinary B'chol Miyeh Derech. And that's what we see in Perek Zayin, where the Alter Rebbe in Tanya reckoned out the Baal Tshuva, through feeling the tremendous need to get back into Kedusha, he can reach tremendous madregas that even the tzaddikim don't reach. And he brings over there the famous statement of the Gemara that Mokim Shabbat Tshuva Eimdiv Ein Tzaddikim Yechelim Lamed with the ganze Bier. So there was the Rebbe that on Yom Kippur befragt, and how much more so B'Yom Kippurim, that's not just B'chol Miyeh Derech, not just B'chol Miyeh Derech, how it's connected with Tshuva. Shehu Abiru Shalidei Tshuva Mi'umka Deliba, not Stam Tshuva, but Tshuva from the Etzem of the Nefesh. Yeah, mi umka, the liba, the very essence, wanting to go back to its shoyre. Yeah, what he said, the mashchin le bechele yatira, that they bring down, that brings down the the Eibishter with a much greater power or much greater strength. That's a statement of the Zohar Kodesh in Pasha Chaye Sora, where the Gemara talks, the Zohar talks about the Maila, the Bali Tshuva, over the Tzadikim in the Lashon of the Zohar. And over there it says that the Bali Tshuva literally draw down a much greater Hamshocha from the Eivishter than the Tzadikim, and that's what he says, the Inen of a Mashchin, where they draw him down, B'chele Yatir, with a greater power. The Mamshichim begins Pnimius B'atzmus, they bring down the Pnimius of Atzmus, completely beyond all the limitations. Yeah, that in that onon ero'eh biatzmusi, I will be seen. That means literally biatzmusi, my very atzmus will be seen. And that's what we pointed out at the beginning of the passage, that he uses the word ero'eh, meaning that he's really higher than Gile and Elam. No, this is the atzmus, yeah, that's just what he is. But that gufa appears and is, as it were, there for the Jewish people. And therefore, even though it comes in the form of an onon, the onon is a maili. It's not something which is not transparent, it's something that hides, but the onon is indicatory of the height of the level from which this whole thing is coming. And therefore said the Rebbe, Ero'eh bi'atzmo, see, Be'am shocha zois to Yom Kippurim, yeah, that occurs on Yom Kippur. The revelation of those inyonim all occur on Chag HaSukkot. Like the Alter Rebbe brings down in the Siddur, Barichus, in the Shah Yom Kippurim, the Alter Rebbe is masber over there that the whole inyan for Yom Kippur and B'klal the Aseres Yemei Tshuva is Aliyah Mimatala Maila. We're going upwards here to reach the very etzem. Pshitas ha'etzem alidei tkiyah shofar, and the details of the avodah, the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. And on Yom Kippur it reaches its height in order to reach the Moki V'Shoresh of Allah Ilui Elakus, that should bring down Pshitas of the Atzmas, and that should wipe away and clean all the stains, and it should also bring Gil Elakus, which means Mashiach. That's what it means, if you look carefully. Edify, said the Rebbe, everything on Yom Kippur is still in a form of aliyah, klape Mila. We're still struggling to get Mamish to the Atzmus in a way that we'll be able to bring him out into Goloi. And that's like the completion which begins on Rosh Hashanah by the Tkiyas. And it's well known that we blow 100 koilos, and the Indian from Sukkah is also the gematria Maya with the koilo, I think it is. Anyway, there's some gematria connected with schach. That's what the word schach. Yeah, the word schach. It also is gematria Maya. Yes, it is. In Maya, we blow 100 koilos of the shofar. Therefore, the ultimate gilui, what we're trying to reach in the shofar, comes out in Chag HaSukkot, but it has to go through the in of Yom Kippurim, the Aliyah into the Madrega of Yom Kippur, and it's like the famous mashal what the Alter Rebbe brings in Likutei Torah, Pasha Kisobei, that on Yom Kippur, it's killer that you come back home into your real place. On Rosh Hashanah, you're still getting there, but you sort of were knocking on the door. You've got up that high, but they got to let you in. And on Yom Kippur, they let you in. And therefore, Yom Kippur is like a day of Oinig. It's one of the famous. When the Rebbe Rashab was a boy, he had an argument with the whole group of Sidim, and they all said that the Indian of Yom Kippur is Inui. It's written in the Torah, self-affliction. So the Rebbe says, what is self-affliction? No, he wouldn't agree with it. And he said, for Yom Kippur is Oinig. It's Tainu Gaki Niflo, Gaki Godel. So they went to ask the Rebbe Marash, The Rav Marash says that you guys are right, it is Inui, but my son is right, he said that this is the Oinig, Aki Godel. Because the Inui is just to get rid of all the other Oinig, all the other time, just clean the, what you might call the whole table. And then you get the Oinig, Haki Godel. And the Alter Rebbe compares that to somebody who's been trying to get into his father's house, and then they let him in. But that's the Oinig, Haki. The Oinig, Haki Niflo, Haki Godel. And so that's the pshat, that the gilu of all that is on Chag HaSukkot. It's all ready to start coming out now. They're prepared to give it to you already in the home. So you can't say that you can't get it anymore. So that it's all given to you in Chag HaSukkot. And then on Simchas Torah it becomes the mamish part of the mensch and part of his guf, v'chule. And I could have told you a story to support that whole issue and that whole principle, but I see that everybody's looking so droopy. They're also saying, when's this all going to finish? We're supposed to have Marav earlier and all the rest of it. So I don't know if I can tell you the story. Well, you're supposed to say, oh yeah, we want to hear the story.
Oh, yeah, story.
So you guys are bait, you don't even bite it. So I heard from the B'nai Bracha Rav Lando, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha, he was mamish, been biased by the Rebbe Rashab. As I heard from him that on Yom Kippur, the Rebbe Rashab, particularly in the latter part of the day, in the afternoon, on Yom Kippur, he was like almost in a state of oinig. It was almost like he was lit up, and he was in a very, very amazingly good and sort of tainug sort of mood. And on Rosh Hashanah, he said he just couldn't get near him. One tried to say it, and he didn't speak except on Yom HaSheni. He would never say a word on Rosh Hashanah. Never look at anybody saying anything to this oyim. Over Yom Kippur, he said it was completely different. And he said he even remembers one time when they call a break, they give on Yom Kippur a break between Musaf and Mincha. You have a break. You guys don't know anything about Yom Kippur, you don't even know what happens on Yom Kippur. And the Babish are conducted to make a break. But some of the toilets, no break, no nothing. They just go the whole time. They just do a stop. I can't see okay. Well, in the Babish are give out a break. So he said that once he accompanied the Rebbe into his side room during the break, and the Rebbe asked him about what does he think about a Rambam, a certain Rambam, and that the Rebbe told him all pilpul in this Rambam on Yom Kippur in the break, and for Ne'ilah, and the Rebbe was told all big pilpul in this Rambam, and then he said that the Rebbe said that we can always also explain it by way of chassidus, but he didn't get that far. There wasn't any time. They only used to make a short break. So all of a sudden the Rebbetzin came in, and she peeped into the room, and she saw that he's schmoozing away, and everything looked fine. Explaining something to Rav Landa. She said, "Oib met azoi tzion, but men verspetzt sich im Nila." She said, "If you're going to draw it out that late, we're going to be late for Nila." That's what the Rebbe had said. So the Rebbe looked up at the clock, the Rebbe Rashab, and he said, "Yo, Echanan." He said, "Yeah, that's right." And then he said, "But I think there's still a little bit of time. Still another minute." That's what we have from the Rebbe. Nice. All right. So we'll call it a night, and we are holding by. What are we holding by? The Gili. The Pasuk in Tehillim, it says Bakesa, that refers to coverage, the Yom Kippur, everything's in a cloud. Yom is Gilui, Chageinu is Sukkot. Bakesa, from Kesa, it comes out into Yom. Chageinu, that's in, and it comes out in Sukkot. Kenoida. Zoin in Nisuch HaMayim Shabbat Sukkot. At the end of Chochmah, which is mine, is normally never Begola. Only his Begola is wine. When Chag HaSukkos is water. Mayim. Once that comes Begola, then Harikot, the really big Simcha, they call it Lutz.
Is there a shackles between Sifrei Chassidus and the union of a party? Because here we are, there's a bunch of letters on this side, and
Yeah.
on the other side.
No, what we're going to say is that the parser drops, the parser becomes bottle. And the Mayim Millennium, the Chokmaship of Mayim Millennium, they just come straight down. In other words, that we let down the parser.
We
But still, I think we should try and dub Mara